everybody, welcome to the LiveCast Conversations With. As always, I'm your host, Gene Bernier, the Enjoyment Coach. And on today's episode, we have Trevor Walker. Trevor was born in Toronto. He lived in Ontario until 2012 when he made the move to BC and never looked back. In his younger years, he found a love for the arts. Enrolling in a drama school, he found a love for performing in front of crowds. After finishing drama school, Trevor started working in the family computer business, where he learned that dealing with people was his strong suit. It translated into a career after as a headhunter, where clients would hire him to find their next new employee. In 2013, Trevor had a passion for photography after his wife bought him a course on how to use his camera. 8 years later, he now runs a very successful head shop and portrait business in Kelowna. Trevor is considered the premier headshot photographer in the Okanagan. He believes strongly that your headshot experience should be smooth and easy with you, getting amazing, confident images. Trevor focuses on coaching expressions, so you never have to worry about someone saying cheese or smile again. Trevor, my words can only do you so much justice, brother. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on the show. And that was a fantastic introduction.
Oh, wow. Well, it's all true, right? It's just like we were talking about beforehand, with you being so full and taking something that was a passion and building it into a very thriving business, being the premier headshot place to go. And I say that because a lot of friends and in my business circles in the Okanagan all have a photo from Trevor.
Thank you. So, yeah, it's been a good run. I appreciate the plug for sure. Yeah, it's cool because it's a really tight community that we have here in the Okanagan. So yeah. I really enjoy the fact that it's that you can be kind of an active part of it, and I can give some people some great headshots.
Oh yeah, well, it just helps with their presentation, especially now that we live in a very, very digital world after the last 18 months.
Oh yeah, Zoom has become like huge for me. So tons of people have to upgrade their pictures because they've been using the same ones for 6 years. Now all of a sudden their companies were like, okay, now you're going to work from home. So I had a massive influx of people that realized that they needed to upgrade the way they looked in order to keep up with the office politics and all that drama remotely.
Appearances still matter, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. Obviously, you haven't been behind the camera for your whole career, and it sounds like over the last 8 years, this passion has grown from a passion now into a thriving business. Kind of talk to us about like what led you down this whole journey. Obviously, being a headhunter and everything else, there's a lot of mixture of dealing with people that comes through all of your stories.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, there was a couple key events in my life that made me kind of go down the route of photography. I'd say, like you said when you were talking earlier, my wife bought me a course after I bought a camera on impulse. We were in LA and just on a trip, and there was a little camera that was a mirrorless camera, and it was one of the first Samsung made it. And I looked at this. I was used to seeing these giant cameras. And I saw this little thing, and I'm a tech geek, so I was like, "Oh my god, I got to buy it." Then I bought it and realized I had no clue all the dials and buttons and all this weird stuff, and I was super overwhelmed. So my wife bought me a course, and we went to Granville Island in Vancouver. And then when we were there was this like quirky guy that's like, "Hey guys, here's depth of field and lighting and composition," and he was going nutty. And so while we were going through the whole thing, he's walking us everywhere. We walked for like hours and took pictures of everything and tried out different techniques. I realized that as soon as I put my wife in front of the camera, I had more fun when I was talking to her. Because as a recruiter, I just talk. And in general, people that know me know I don't shut up very often. So I like to talk a lot. So if you need me to stop talking, just go.
No, this makes you a perfect guest.
So anyway, so then it translated from there. I decided to get a little bit deeper in photography, and I tried everything. I tried weddings, engagements, you name it. I shot everything. And funny enough, the man who taught me essentially is Peter Hurley, and he runs a group called the Headshot Group. Probably he's the best headshot photographer in the world, no question. And what he did was I watched him do headshots, and I was like, I like that. And that made me kind of go, I got to learn from this guy, and I got to figure out. And then my entire focus became headshots, because it's the best of both worlds for me. I get to talk to people, which I really, really enjoy doing, find out what do they do for a living, what do they like, and what don't they like. These are all my favorite things as a recruiter, but I get to put them in front of my camera. and then give them some amazing shots that look like them. So it's cool. So it really kind of fired me up, and then to kind of keep pushing forward, we decided we wanted to move to a different city from where we were. We were in Vancouver, major city center, and I was a recruiter, which doesn't really exist out in Kelowna the same way. So I needed a career change, and I was like, hey, I've been running this business as a side gig for years. I'm like, hey, can I make this work as a full-time gig? So when we moved here, I opened up a full-time business, which was almost 3 years ago to the day. It's 3 years ago in August that we moved out to Kelowna, and then I've been doing what I love ever since.
That's incredible. Like that's taking a big step into like I'm about to say the word confidence, but like just to be making a move. You're moving to a new city, and then you're going to start a new company. Going, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going all in. Like talk about like burning the boats.
I was scared. I was so scared. I tell this to people all the time. I was so scared to do it. And I kept saying to my wife, who's amazing, she was my anchor throughout all this. She's great support structure for me. But I kept saying, like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. But I was part of this group. And in the group that I surrounded myself with was all some of the best headshot photographers in the world. And we would talk, and then we would I would find out, oh, wow, you're doing really well. What are you doing? And you're doing really well. What are you doing? And I started to really kind of build a network of people all over that I could kind of pull bits of info from. And then I would take those little things and start to develop it my own way. So how do I want to grow business, and how do I want to find clients and all that stuff? And I gave myself 6 months. I said 6 months. If I can't get traction, I'm out. I'm going to go do something else, which I had no backup plan. It was going to be a recruiter, I guess. I don't know, but I was like, I'm going to just give it a shot. So 6 months, I went hard, worked my butt off, just trying to get some traction with people. And knock on wood, it's worked. It's working so far. So I don't want to jinx it, but I've been very, very lucky for sure.
Well, that's incredible. Now, the one thing that stands out from me from all that is that you surrounded yourself with the right group of people to be with. Yeah. How did you find this group of the best headshot people in the world? Like, how was this something you stumbled upon? Did you actively go hunt them? Were they mentors? Like, how did you get involved in that group to begin with?
All of the above. So I mentioned that Peter Hurley, who's the man who kind of changed my life with the headshot stuff. He was kind of the person that mentored me. So I really got to learn from the best. And then there were other people that were in the same boat. So I really gravitated towards them. We just started talking, and then we continue to talk. And we have a platform that we all talk on multiple times a week. And it's such a good resource to get you going. Like it doesn't take you all the way. It doesn't take you to the finish line. You got to take over at some point and keep growing it up. But once you're connected to people, or once you have a circle in general of people who are highly successful, specifically in the field that you want to be in, it's a game changer. Because now all of a sudden you go from trying to figure out. So when you run a business, you think you know what's best, but you don't, because you're not your client. So a lot of people miss that, and they think a good one for photographers is like my price is too. They always think, oh my God, I have to price aggressively because I want to get in the market. Well, but do you? Do you have a good product? Do you have a good experience for somebody? Can you take somebody to a place they haven't been before? That's valuable. And we are not our best clients. So surrounding yourself with other people who recognize that and who can say, like, don't be the cheapest photographer. I recently wrote an article about you can't sustain a career off of a $200 headshot. And it was literally based on like people thinking, oh, I'm going to go super low in price to get clients. And that's not true. But you don't know that unless you make the mistakes. And if you have a group of people around you that have worked hard and all made a bunch of different mistakes, and you're collaborating and sharing that information, you learn exponentially faster. And it made all the difference in the world to me, for sure.
Oh, 100%. So it's so interesting to hear that that's such a big component to it, right? Because there's a huge thing about surrounding yourself with people, like you said, that are already successful, because it does help bring you up. And I like the fact that you kind of talked about there is a responsibility to take control of that. If you want to kind of stay in that group, you have to work to be, to become what you need to be with that, right? Success, kind of like you're always as successful as the people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
I've used like masterminds and this stuff in the past. It kind of sounds like you guys kind of have built one of those, and it sounds like even to this day you're still communicating regularly, a few times a week.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is when it starts off with just kind of, for me at least, the way I did it was that I would become friends with certain people that I quite liked, and then as I was connecting with these individuals, I would just kind of talk and I try to make friendships. So I think,
Yeah,
for me, as soon as I started getting some of these friends, and there's conferences, so all the time we're going to the same places, and then there's conferences that we do in Vegas and a bunch of other things that happen throughout the year pre-COVID. So we would all get together and you start to see the same faces over and over again because we're all part of the same headshot organization. And
right.
then once we do that, then all of a sudden they become closer friends. And you're chatting on Facebook or you're doing a Zoom chat or you're just calling or texting. And then you just kind of like you build up these relationships. I think the most important thing is as a business owner, because I'm a business owner first, photographer second, because I spend a lot of my time getting those clients. And as a business owner, you really need to recognize that your immediate circle will create your success. And if it works the other way, I know a ton of photographers who are gifted way better than I am, way better than I am, but they can't make any money and they can't grow a business. And it's because they have doubts about their own abilities. They have doubts about their ability to get clients. They externalize it somewhere else. So when a problem is externalized, what do you do about it? What do you do? It's like
Kind of
you
it's kind
think
of
that,
hard to take responsibility for it when you're placing the blame on somebody else's shoulders,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a really dangerous. And the thing is, if you surround other people who say, I agree, then you're in a spiral.
Yeah.
And it ends up being this nastiness. And, there was one person I talked to that just didn't believe what I was pricing. And I would say, here's my price. Here's what I charged over the weekend. I shot it. And he's like, I can't believe it's too much money. And I was like, well, no, it's not too much money. It works for the client and the services I provide and the experience, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But he was around so many other photographers that weren't able to reach any level of success that what I said sounded insane.
Yeah.
And I said, I could teach you. I could hang around me more. I like you. We'll try to get you there. But the immediate group of people around you absolutely help to drive your success.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sink you.
Well, and one thing I want to pick up on too is like it was a really piece that stood out is that you said you were a business person first, photographer second.
Yeah.
Right. And that is a really powerful distinction. Like, was there a point in time that you made that realization, or have you always kind of viewed it that way?
So yeah, when I first started doing photography, it was nice and fun. I didn't charge anything for it. I was just like, whoever wants me in front of my camera, go.
Yeah.
And then I was like, how do I start? And the honest thing was, my wife was like, what are you buying now? What's the new thing you bought? I was like, shit, I have to start justifying this. So I'm like, how do I make some money justify these things? Because I was buying gear I had no reason to buy. I was just buying cameras and lenses and all this craziness. So
Right.
I ended up just saying, I got to start to charge. How do I charge money? And then I was like, ooh, so my previous career was a recruiter. It's essentially a sales role. Like I had to cold call 150 times in the morning, go visit clients, try to win their business over. So I realized that when I was that, people would say they're recruiters, and I would say, well, I'm kind of like a salesperson. And I get to recruit as well, but I need to find the clients and get the clients. So when I decided that I needed to find better ways of paying for my gear, I realized that I need to find clients the exact same way. I have to find clients and get clients. And that absorbs 70, 80% of my work day. Yeah. So the 20% I get to do is the real fun stuff when I get people in front of my camera. But there's the entire other 80% that gets me to the point where I get that 20% that is amazing. So and that's where when I talk to photographers, or I talk to anybody, it's once you develop this set of skills, it's transferable to whatever. So if photography doesn't work out, and I love photography, I want to do it the rest of my life. But if for whatever reason I had a tragic accident, lost both my arms, I don't know. I don't want to get dark, but whatever happens, it's the skill set absolutely applies. So I can take that same skill set and go do another business or go build another business, because the skill set to grow a business is the same regardless of the industry that you're in.
Love that. And hopefully everyone's taking notes on that. Is like that it is 80% of working in the business, not always doing the fun part. You're building up to be able to support to do the fun part. And it's an interesting mix when you look at it as like a photographer first, be like, well, you've got a hobby that you're trying to like shoehorn into a business, whereas you've got a skill, and then you've also got a set of skills that allows you to build a business, build a client relationship, because there's so much more that goes into servicing a client. You got to be personable. You got to understand their needs, and you got to understand why the market supports the pricing that you put out there. And sometimes being like really uncomfortable about setting your price a little bit higher and not getting trapped in the let's be on the race to the bottom of who can put the lowest price out there.
And it is too. It's funny that you talk about pricing, which is a whole different side note. I talk about this for hours with other people, but I think with anybody that has a business, you have to determine what your cost of doing business is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think of it as a market sustainability for a price of something. And that only applies when it's a mass marketable physical product. So if I sell a ladder and there's 10 other ladder manufacturers, there's an absolute price cap if we don't change the material. There's an absolute price cap. But when you're a service provider, then you're talking about an entirely different thing. If you're a service provider, then it's the level of service you require, and it's the problem that you're solving for the client. So your price point is absolutely connected to that. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss when they're thinking about their businesses. They're like, I sell a product. So people in my world, they think I take pictures. That's what I do. Yeah. But you don't. You get somebody very early on who has a problem. The problem might be I need headshots, but most likely the problem is, how do I make my LinkedIn look better? How do I get my marketing to convert better? How do I get more clients as a realtor? And then as that process goes through, if your marketing and your messaging is clear to say, I'm going to solve that problem for you, it gets to another level where now they're like, but I hate being in front of the camera. So it's this whole marketing machine. Like, so my marketing is very driven towards, if you don't like being in front of the camera, I'll show you that you're still photogenic, right? And it's not that I do any particular magic, but I help people get relaxed. And then once you're relaxed and you're having a bit of fun, it's easy to smile and just have a fun time. Yeah. So that's all part of the whole marketing machine of what you're doing. And that's how it applies to every business everywhere. It's the same core components.
So what is it like when you're faced with the example you showed or talked about earlier, is you've got a lot of photographers that look at your price and go, what? How are you charging this? How are you staying as busy as you are? And like as we talked about beforehand, you're booked. What, like, yeah. You're very
well, yeah. Yeah, I think the marketing of it is complicated. So marketing starts off quite simply with it's funny whenever I try to talk about marketing, so my marketing, I have referrals, and I have Facebook ads, and I have Google ads, and I have SEO on my website. I have 2 different websites. I have drip campaigns for emails. I have a very, very complicated marketing machine. But it starts off with what you're the most comfortable at. So if you're the most comfortable at talking to people, you do that, and you say, how do I talk to people more? And that's how you start to build up your business. So for me, I like talking to people. So I joined every networking group I could get into, go to every event I could get into. And I started talking to humans. And when I talk to people, I don't say, well, I'm a photographer. I would love it if I can get your business. My general rule is that you don't ever ask for business. It's weird. Why would you ask? If you don't ask, you just kind of help them solve a problem, and then there's no ask.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and I would just go to these groups and like, what do you do? I'm like, I take pretty pictures of people. And then, as they got to know who I was, I would just talk because I love what I do. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, I hated my last pictures. And I was like, let me ask, were you told to smile? And they'd be like, yeah. Well, I don't say that because that's stupid. If I tell you to smile, your brain's like, pull the corners of the mouth up. And you look like you're, so it's just those things. So I say, from a marketing perspective, you want to lean into what you're comfortable with first. And then from there, you can always layer on and start to build up the marketing.
So lean into where you're comfortable, and then you can start to build up. And you asked a really great question, and maybe it's the one that you asked yourself while you built up to your marketing machine. Is like, how can I talk to more people? So in your case, being comfortable talking about it, and you are obviously quite clear about what it is that you were doing. So I kind of want to go down 2 tangents here a little bit. One, eventually to talk about like what led, how you built up the rest of the machine so you could talk to more people. And the second is like, how did you get that? What was the journey like to get the clarity around saying, I take pretty pictures of people? Because that it's very like deep. It's like you were saying, it's not you begging or saying, oh, please, here, let's hand out business cards. It probably makes people like smile or smirk a little bit as well. Like, it's kind of like disarming. when you'd say that, and I suspect you probably say it with a bit of a gleam in your eye too, right? Like it pulls the walls down. Be like, oh, he's not trying to sell me, but he's hilarious.
Yeah, I think, you know what? As a former salesperson, I was very, very aggressive. So, and if you name the sales tactic, and I employed it for a large part of my younger years as being a salesperson, I would do pressure sales, and I was in Toronto, like I was in that area, so it's very high pressure. And as a recruiter, I'd be like, okay, hi, my name is Trevor Walker, yeah, blah blah blah. It would sound salesy, and
Yeah.
I was very, very good at that. It was one of my strengths for sure. But then as I started looking at my own business, I thought, like, how do I build a non-transactionally based business? And I realized that the biggest thing for me was to be the clarity of having somebody, like for me, it was about making sure that the direction that I wanted to go was transparent. Like it was just kind of a nice, clear, easy road, so that clients don't feel that they're going on some weird kind of journey with me or something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And did that take you a while to like hone and practice? Or were you like pretty, like your experience as a salesperson and as a recruiter kind of gives a bit of an edge on that front, but is like, did it still take a little bit of time to like, smooth out the edges on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is I made a ton of mistakes. So I've screwed up more than anybody you can imagine. So like as I was starting to build it, I would try to figure out what am I doing and how am I going to make it work? And then I would just try things that I thought made sense. And if they didn't work, I would change gears quick.
Right.
So I would try to make it as natural as possible. And I would try to learn. And I think the big thing is that as a business owner, and I say this to people that I mentor some people to try to help them with their business. And I say your ego has to be very, very controlled. So I like to take a lot of accountability for what I do. So if I try something, it's me. It's I own it. So I own the success and I own the failures. And the failures aren't horrible, but you have to be able to kind of keep going past them. Yeah. So every time I would do something, I would make sure that I would be very focused on, is it working? Isn't it working? And am I comfortable doing it? Do I want to keep doing it? And if it didn't, then I would change courses.
Right.
So it's kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So is it working? And do I feel comfortable doing it, being really critical pieces to pull that whole integrated you out, and so that you get to be there and it's not some ego driven or, character that you're playing. It's you, which then allows you to be a lot more in that moment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That does make a lot of sense. So that's awesome. All right. So the other path I want to talk about is, what was your path to discovering about, what are the other tools you would need to allow you to have more conversations? Because you mentioned this isn't transactional. So it sounds like this is all about relationship building for you.
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, when you're starting with the marketing, the important part is starting where you are the most comfortable. I said that before, but what I mean from that is like I have people all the time that are like, hey, what do I need to do to grow a business? And I say, well, what do you want to do? What's your strength? Yeah. Some people don't like talking to other individuals. So then I say, do you have a website going? Do you have a really incredible portfolio? And do you have your SEO working well? So someone Googles headshots in their city, that you come up first. So for me, I led heavily into the networking because I liked it. But at the same time, I was building a website. And when I was done the website, I was figuring out SEO. When I was figuring out SEO, I started adding Google ads. And then once I figured out Google ads, I started adding Facebook ads. It's a never ending thing. It doesn't end. And I think that's the reality I like to tell people is that if you make excuses why you can't or don't want to do any of those things, then being a business owner is going to be very, very limiting for you. Right. And then from a photography perspective, that's how you become a starving artist. Because what happens is you have a photographer who's like, well, I just want to take pictures. Sure, me too. It'd be great, but that's not the reality of what we do. Right. So how do you turbo boost that whole process? How do you get it going faster? And then it's about learn. I didn't know SEO. I didn't know Google ads. I didn't know Facebook, but I knew how to Google and I knew how to pay for courses. And I knew how to surround myself with those same people that I could go to as a resource and say, do you do Google ads? Can you give me some tips that can start me off? Right. And then I spent a ton of time looking over my results. So whenever I do any kind of a marketing campaign, I look over my return on investment. So What am I doing? Am I getting a return on the investment? What does it look like? And do I need to change gears? But it's a never ending thing. So if you don't have a love for that, just as much as the photography, owning a business ain't for you. you gotta go get a job where you might get a pension and a regular paycheck, because it's a very, very different world.
You know what? I appreciate and praise that you just said that, right? Because that, the question comes up a lot, especially on LinkedIn and stuff. Like, what makes a good employee versus an entrepreneur? Is the entrepreneur is the one that will still get up and go do the grind. It's grind work, but it's required. In my mind's eye, I hear Thanos saying, "Oh, the work is done." Be like, "Nah, the work is never done." That's
It's
the
never
thing,
done.
is like it just evolves, and you get to learn more, and you see different ways of going about it. And that's, like, I think the real crux of it is, like, can you get up 5 days out of 7 really excited about putting your feet on the ground and going and doing that work, or being able to reconnect that work to the joy of doing that, that 20%, right?
Yeah.
Because that 80% is what takes, so you can go be paid to do the thing that you love the most. So it's an interesting topic for a lot of people to find a way to actually, like, build a loving relationship with that other 80%, because they need to.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that's why business ownership, regardless of what it is, especially if you're self-employed, like if you're a salesperson working for a company, it's a little bit different because they give you tools. But if you're running your own business, it's complicated. So and there's things that you're going to love, and there's a bunch you're going to hate. Like when you talk about accounting, I am horrible. My accountant still is like, Trevor, I'm waiting for the stuff from you, and I'm like, yeah, I know. And I'm an incorporated business, so I can't mess around with that. But
Yeah.
it's the necessary evil to get the fun. So it's not intended for everyone. It's intended for the ones that are really willing to put in the work. And if you're willing to put in the work, you absolutely will see the results. But it's a combination, because if you're willing to put in the work, and if you can do it in a way that your ego isn't directly attached to it, then you can learn, and you can evolve, and you can try new things, and you can screw up. The hard part is that as I was making the plethora of mistakes that I've made growing my business, there is an instinct to blame someone, blame a market, blame your city, you find reasons, because inherently we try to protect our egos. It doesn't matter what we do, you protect it. That's why people fight. It's because it's an ego, because if it wasn't for your ego, there would just be a bunch of facts that are right or wrong. It's quite simple. So with running a business, when you do screw up, so I'll give you a quick example. In my second year last year, I was quite heavily reliant on SEO. Sorry, my first year. I was very, very heavily reliant on SEO because nobody knew who I was. And I was doing these networking things, but it doesn't make enough money for you to do networking gigs. So SEO was giving me a lot of traction. My website had a problem and I missed it. I didn't see that it had a problem. And I let that problem go because I wasn't focused on that. And it ended up that I had a month with virtually no revenue. And it was a harsh mistake. And it was a mistake because I thought I had my machine running, so the website's good, but I missed a mistake that I made. And that mistake took 2 months to impact my SEO. And then it took 2-3 months to get it back again. So all of a sudden, last November, or the first November, so like 2 years ago, November was dead. I think I made $1,000, and I normally make a lot more. So it was one of those moments that I'm like, I could have said, oh, Google changed algorithm. What's this? Oh, I could have blamed a bunch of things, but I quite simply said, "Whoops, I screwed up. I got to figure this out. I got to make it better." So it became a whole thing. It became something. But the key is that I didn't let my ego beat me down. So I wasn't sad about it. I was frustrated, and then I said, "Cool. What do I do to ensure that I don't make these kind of mistakes again? Because these mistakes are costing me tens of thousands of dollars." So what do I have to put in place? And the key is, ego is not part of that. You can't bring ego into the equation. If you get upset or self-pity, or you feel sad, or you feel angry, none of those help you make money. All they do is cloud your mind. So you have to kind of keep that clarity going, for sure.
That's very, very valuable. Is like, it's almost like learning to be in love with the process of learning and dumping things as they come around, and not falling in love with the end product, right? Because a lot, like, if you fall in love with your site, then, well, this thing then becomes infallible, and like, it can't be wrong, and everyone else is wrong. Be like,
Yeah.
No, like if this is one of your drivers, you have to be willing to be like, go, okay, I'm willing to change everything about this
Mhm.
as long as it allows me to still be me
Mhm.
and bring out the best for my business, right? Is this bringing out the best in my business? And
Yeah.
if you can't look at it and go, oh man, I couldn't part with this, like there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had with why not?
You bring up a really, really good point there, is the attachment to what we do. And I went through it too, because as I was getting better at my work, I'd have Peter Hurley, who I mentioned before, is an amazing photographer, best in the world. He would see a picture of mine and give me a hard time and be like, "What is this garbage? What are you doing?" And it's hard because the instinctually I'm like, "Oh, I put my time into it. I talked to the, I edited, but you feel, but then you have to get to the point where you're like, that doesn't matter. Let the
Mhm.
ego go and realize that you're creating something. So if somebody who is a resource, somebody who is where you want to be, is offering you advice of any kind, take it.
Right.
You don't have to do what they say, because we're all adults. You can do what you want, but to hear that information and to process it gives you the ability to kind of like think and be like, hey, is that person right? And if you don't have an attachment to your product, your service, your website, then it allows you to be nimble. One of the biggest fears I still have it to this day, I have this fear all the time, is change, and that I miss it. So I say this to my wife all the time. I don't want to be the 70-year-old photographer that shoots stuff that looks like it was 40 years ago,
Ooh,
right? So a big part of that is that to be able to change, you have to be able to tuck the ego away and say that what I'm doing now is good and I like it. But if the times change, am I willing to change with them, or will I not change and die? I worked retail for a decade, and retail changed. And I left before things drastically changed the company I was with, but the company didn't change. So when you don't change retail, we watch major places close down all these decades because they don't change. So
yeah,
same thing applies to a business owner. If you're not kind of being nimble, and this applies to marketing, it applies to everything, then you don't want to get stuck into a rut where you think you're right.
yeah,
There's people that I try to teach, and they'll tell me. I had one that happened yesterday. Took a picture. I was giving my feedback on it, and I was like, "Oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. I would change this." And his thing was, he's like, "Well, I meant to shoot that way. I like it that way." And I was like, "Yeah, you can like it. That's
yeah,
fine." But as somebody who's made that mistake, and it was a technical error in the image, I'm like, it makes it not a commercially viable. It's not as nice,
right,
So lose the attachment to what you think, and think in terms of, as what's the value to my clients.
right. Yeah, and I think there's a component of losing that attachment to the outcomes and the deliverables and the products that you're making, and attaching it more to like, what if you're going to attach anything, what are your values, right? Like for you, it sounds like you want to be always on kind of like that cutting edge, always willing to open to change, open to evolution. So if you're attached to that, then you're looking at it going, this picture, like the new way of doing pictures or what the market's asking for has evolved. So I'm going to evolve with it. Whereas in this example, it's like he got really probably defensive about what he was doing because he was very proud of it. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of it. But if you're going to be open to it, be like, do you want to be better? Are you willing to be a little bit better than you were yesterday? And
Mhm.
if you can ask yourself that and honestly say yes, then you need to sit with some of that like hard feedback that like hits you. And I've been through that many times. Like I used to have a boss that I joked about, like I dreaded his red pen, but I came to actually love it because it made me better. It wasn't like him critiquing me as a person. It was like my writing is like, I'm notoriously bad. Like I'm never going to write a novel or anything like that. But like it allowed me to present my ideas on paper a lot better. So like there's room to grow from it. I can either sit with that and be like upset by, oh, he made me feel bad. Be like, no, he didn't make me feel bad. Like I feel bad because I'm already insecure about this component, but this is an opportunity for me just to get like a little bit better. I'm never going to be Hemingway, but I could be really good at writing this report.
And I think the same thing applies there. That's why I say lean into what you like. So, like in that sense, for example, if writing is not your thing, you might try it, and you might make the decision, I don't want to do that, which there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
no.
but I never say I can't. I always choose to not get better at something. So like if it's writing, for example, is a weird thing. I'm horrible at writing copy. I don't like doing it at all. So every once in a while, I'll hire a writer and I'll pay them because it's worth it. And even with my retouching, I don't do all my retouching. I have retouchers. So it's like there's certain things that you need to figure out. Do I want to do it? And if I really enjoy it, then I'll get better and better and better, and I'll keep doing it because I like it. But if I don't like it, why the hell would you do it? Like I have a bookkeeper and I don't have a lot of transactions. And even my bookkeeper's like, why do you hire? It doesn't make sense why you pay me. And I was like, because I hate it. And if I hate it, I don't want to do it. And if I hate it, I'm never going to do it well.
Yeah.
So don't do something that you don't want to do well. Give it to somebody who's really good at it, and then focus on the things that you can do better.
Well, and as well, like in that instance, like it frees up your time to go do more of the things that you love, which is actually going to probably bring a more valuable impact to your business. Like shout out to all the bookkeepers out there. Like Christy, you save my butt all the time. Like it's, but I don't like it either. Right. And I to be able to sit there and go, I'm happy to pay this money because I know I can go make more by doing what I love versus spending hours potentially doing it wrong and costing me in fines or anything else that goes along with it.
You know, small story. I recently installed, not recently, I'm lying entirely. When the pandemic hit, I decided I wanted to redo all the flooring in my studio.
Yeah.
So I bought flooring to cover the entire floor because my studio is part of my house. And I was like, I'm going to do it because it's COVID. I have time. I'm going to do it. No problem. And then it ended up that it took me so long to do it. I stopped, didn't touch it for like a year. And then finally I was talking to my wife and she's like, why didn't you just hire someone to do it? Why did you want to? And I was like, because I can do it. I'm good at this stuff. I can do it. But then I was like, whoa. That's your ego talking.
Yeah.
That's not smart. So I had to like literally take a step back and be like, can I just hire someone to do it for me? That's way better than I am, and that can just do the job, and I can move on to get more clients. And it's exactly what I did, and it made a massive difference. And also my mom, who's visiting now for the first time, seeing her granddaughter, has a room with flooring that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have said, I got to give this to somebody who's better than I am because I won't get it done.
Oh, 100. It is funny how we get stuck on some of those things sometimes, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to pay for this. I could do it. Be like, you're gonna do it, and you're gonna do it nowhere near as good as what they could do. Or you could go do more headshots and like crush that while they're also up putting an incredible floor down, right? You get to have two incredible things, but you just can't do them all. So which one are you gonna pick, and which one brings you that most joy?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love where this conversation has gone, Trevor. So, I just want to say thank you and appreciate for your time to diving into it. Like we've talked very little about photography and everything about all the stuff that goes around to allow you to do the thing that you love.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part. I think it's funny when I talk to people about photography. I'm like, yeah, just do it a bunch. You'll get good at it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Do it a bunch. It's fine. It's quite easy if you really put the time in just to shoot a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, if you grow a business, it's like, whoa. If I get a client in here that does their own business or they do their own marketing, I'm like, oh, while you're here, we're going to talk. Because I love talking marketing because it's the difference between having success and not, right? And it's so essential to be able to build up the marketing. So that's the part. If you're thinking in terms of my passion, I love to get to shoot people, but I love talking about how people acquire clients, and not complete sales. That's not the point. But it's how do you get what you do in front of other people that don't know what you do and communicate it in a way that's going to solve a problem they didn't know that they had. That's magic. And to be able to do that, it's a little bit of a superpower. Like I think it's those people, and people do it way better than I do it, but I managed to crack into a little bit that I'm pretty good at. So that it's cool stuff for sure.
Oh yeah, it just comes down to listening and being aware to what they're actually asking for, right? It's that whole, like, somebody walks into Home Depot going, I need a drill. Be like, no, you need a hole made at some point. Why do you actually need a hole? Oh, you're trying to place your closet organizer. Great. Now we understand the whole big picture. How can we help you solve that problem?
Yeah. It's a good point, because even with that one, that's a great analogy, because when they say I need a drill, you go, well, why do you need a drill? I need a drill because I'm putting a closet together. Oh, okay. So why do you think you need a drill for the closet? Like it's just what you're saying is right. There's so many layers you can peel back.
Yeah.
And then if you're a service provider, then someone's like, I need a drill, then you might drill down and be like, oh, but you don't want to do this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I do it. And if they're like, well, I didn't want to hire you because I know that you guys take forever. Oh, well, no, we do this in 3 hours. Like, what I mean? There's ways that you can. I think a lot of it is, as a photographer, it's that as I shoot more people, like, I talk to them. And as I talk to them, a lot of people say the same thing. I hate being in front of the camera. And everyone thinks it's a very unique proposition for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it is. Everyone thinks it's unique. So whenever I get someone and they're all, Trevor, just so you know about me, I really don't like being in front of the camera. And I would be like, I've heard that 12 times this week. So you are not alone in that pain.
Yeah.
But I drive my marketing to talk to that. I drive my marketing to so I can tell people, not that you get an amazing headshot. That's a byproduct of being real comfortable. Yeah. So I say stuff like, I'll show you that you're photogenic. So it's all kind of part of the whole thing for me, right? Like, the messaging is key.
Yeah, it's getting to the true source of that pain and solving it for them. So that's incredible, Trevor. So as I said before we got in, I'm going to look up and be like, hey, we're at 40 minutes. We're at 41 minutes. And I knew this was just going to fly by. So I want to be respectful of your time. So as always, I ask everybody, my one famous question is, we're going to jump into my time machine. We're going to go back 10 years. We're going to open up the door, and you get to give yourself, your younger self, one piece of advice.
Yeah. So the one piece of advice, I don't have any regrets. I'm very lucky to be where I am today. So I have no regrets at all. But if I were to talk to young Trevor, I would say, like, you got this. Go ahead. Just do it. I think that the key is, like, we provide ourselves with so much doubt, and so much of it is not grounded in reality. We create these crazy stories in our brain as to why we can't do something or why we won't be successful. For a long time, I wanted to run my own recruitment agency, and my brother-in-law, who's a wildly successful business person, would be like, "Do it. Why don't you just do it?" And I'd be like, "Oh, because the market." I came up with these ideas. And it was a narrative that I just played out in just my head. Yeah. So if I were to talk to the 10 years ago Trevor, 20 years, 30 years, maybe, I'm getting pretty old, I would say, just do it. Don't worry. It's okay to do something and screw up. Learn, change it, keep going, and then push through. You got this.
That's awesome, Trevor. That's a great piece of advice. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course, yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, where are the best places people can connect with you?
So you can find me on my main website, which is trevorwalkerphotography.com. On all the socials, I'm Trev Walk, because Trevor Walker is the probably 5th most common name in the world. There's like 5 in Kelowna alone. But TREVWALK is how you can find me on all the socials.
All right. And as well, if you're looking for it, down below in the descriptions, we've got the link to his Instagram and his website. So definitely go check him out. And if you're in need of a headshot and you want to feel photogenic, Trevor's your man. All right.
Thank you.
So everybody, thanks for watching episode 49 of Pealed Back's LiveCast Conversation With. Next week is episode 50, which is crazy to think that we're hitting this milestone. We're bringing back guest number 1. Tom Broxham is going to be on the show. So we look forward to that conversation. And Trevor, thanks for being part of the show today.
Thank you very much.
All right. And everyone, have a great rest of your week.